attorney, former federal prosecutor, best-selling author, one of the country's most prominent appellate attorneys. Sidney, good to have you with us. Dominion voting system seems to be figuring larger and larger in the interest of your legal team. And what is the latest?
Oh, definitely, Lou. I've just gotten some stunning evidence from a first-hand witness, a high-ranking military officer who was present when Smartmatic was designed in a way that and I'm going to just read you some of these statements, if you don't mind, so I get them exactly right from the affidavit. Designed in a way that the system could change the vote of each voter without being detected. He wanted the software itself to function in such a manner that if the voter were to place their thumbprint or fingerprint on a scanner, then the thumbprint would be tied to a record of the voter's name and identity as having voted, but that voter would not be tracked to the changed vote. He made it clear that the system would have to be set up but not leave any evidence of the changed vote for a specific voter, and that there would be no evidence to show and nothing to contradict that the name or the fingerprint or thumbprint was going with a changed vote. Smartmatic agreed to create such a system and produce the software and hardware that accomplished the result for President Chavez. After the Smartmatic electoral management system was put in place, he closely observed several elections where the results were manipulated using the Smartmatic software. One such election was December 2006 when Chavez was running against Rosales. Chavez won with a landslide over Rosales, a margin of nearly 6 million votes for Chavez versus 3.7 million for Rosales. In 2013, he witnessed another Venezuelan national election where the Smartmatic management system was used to manipulate and change the results for Chavez. And it goes on and on. He was in the control room where multiple digital display screens were shown for results and voting. The actual voting results were fed into that room and onto the displays over an internet feed, which was connected to a sophisticated computer system created by Smartmatic. People in that room were able to see in real time whether the vote that came through the electronic voting system was in their favor or against them. If one looked at any particular screen, they could determine that the vote from any specific area or as a national total was going to be against either candidate. Persons controlling the vote tabulation computer had the ability to change the reporting of votes by moving votes from one candidate to another by using the Smartmatic software.
And Smartmatic, the relation...
Smartmatic.
Sidney, yes, and Smartmatic, the chairman is Admiral Pete Neffinger, who is also on the the vice president's transition team, his presumptuous presidential transition team. That's an extraordinary situation as well, isn't it?
Yes, it is. So here's the other kicker. When the Smartmatic machines when somebody's losing, like, for example, when Maduro and his supporters realized the size of the other guy's lead, they were worried that they were in crisis mode and would lose the election. The Smartmatic machines used for voting in each state were connected to the Internet, reported their information over the Internet to the Caracas Control Center real time, so the decision was made to reset the entire system. Maduro's and his supporters ordered the network controllers to take the Internet itself offline in practically all parts in Venezuela to change the results. It took the voting operators approximately 2 hours to make the adjustments in the vote from Radonsky to Maduro. Then when they turned the Internet back on and the online reporting was up and running again, they checked each screen state by state to be certain they could see each vote was changed in favor of Maduro.
Sidney, you tweeted earlier today about CIA and its association. What have you discovered there?
Well, other than the fact there's no way all this was happening around the world without the CIA knowing about it. I mean, that's just logic. This affidavit also explains it's been used to change election results all over the world. And it's all Venezuelan and Cuban and essentially communist money that's been doing this. It's a foreign-owned company, as you mentioned earlier. The president of it is Mr. Neffinger, who is on Biden's very presumptuous and immediately failing transition team. And people have been reporting this to our government for several years, including Democrats, and nobody's done a damn thing about it, Lou. I can't even express how furious I am over this.
Well, I share your fury and frustration, but I do have some news to break here at this moment. I have now received word from a highly reliable source that the FBI does have an investigative team that is now looking into this election. Now, what that means beyond that, but at least it's confirmation that they are investigating, and we'll see what moves, because there had been no indication that indeed publicly that they were involved. They are now. To that point, I'd just like to show, if we could put up the full screen, under what their authorities are when we talk about these state-run elections, even though they're federal elections for at least a sizable number of the candidates. As you see there, the ballot includes one or more federal candidates, an election of polling place, official abuses of their office, the conduct involving false voter registration, the crime intentionally targets minority protected classes, the activity violates federal campaign finance laws. All of this laid out on the FBI website for anyone to look at. And it appears, Sidney, that at least the FBI has finally looked at that website. I'm not sure it was Christopher Wray, but someone at the FBI, and took action. Your thoughts?
Well, my other thought is that as soon as the Smartmatic system changed the votes that they wanted for their desired candidate, by the time they finish, they achieve a convincing but narrow victory of the certain number of votes they want for their candidate. This person saw by what his own experience exactly what was happening there was happening here.
It is a deeply troubling election. As I said earlier, the worst in this country's history, bar none. And we have seen official investigative and Justice Department officials slow to move, and it is infuriating to everyone.
The president, we've seen willful blindness. They have adopted a position of willful blindness to this massive corruption across the country. And the Smartmatic software is in the DNA of every vote tabulating company's software and system.
Yes, and it is more than just a willful blindness. This is people trying to blind us to what is going on. We don't even know who the hell really owns these companies, at least most of them. That's got to change, and we've got to find out exactly what's going on. And thank God we've got a president who will stay in the fight all the way through until we get those answers. Sidney Powell, thanks so much. We appreciate it as always.
Well, actually, we'll go to Jenna Ellis first. Breaking this evening, the County Board of Canvassers in Wayne County, Michigan, refused to certify the election results. If the state board follows suit, the Republican state legislator will select the electors. Huge win for Donald Trump. Very, very interesting. They found major problems with, let's see here, absentee voting precincts didn't match the number of ballots cast. The imbalances between August and November are not an exact comparison, but look, there's a lot here, and we've got the perfect person, Sidney Powell, standing by, member of President Trump's legal team. Sidney, welcome, and I know you've been handling a lot of the Georgia situation and Dominion, but your reaction to the situation in Michigan, please.
Well, that's an excellent development, and I would expect the entire Michigan board to reject the counts from the ballots. The election could not have been more rigged than it was, and I think it also affected the race of Senator John James. The same patterns fall there. We're still doing statistical analysis of that race, but the math just doesn't add up for anything, and we know Dominion has a long history of rigging elections. That's what it was created to do to begin with. We've introduced the affidavit of person who worked with Maduro, a high-ranking military officer who saw it all happen and explained how it worked. And it's out for the public to see on my Twitter feed at Sidney Powell #1. So don't tell me there's no evidence of fraud. We've got increasingly mounting evidence of significant fraud across multiple states that cast into question the validity of the elections in every swing state, including Nevada and Arizona and Michigan, Wisconsin, Georgia, and it went beyond that too.
You know, regarding Dominion, you've raised this, and we saw the letter last night. People like Elizabeth Warren, Amy Klobuchar have raised significant concerns about Dominion. Now they're trying to make it seem like a right-wing, wacko conspiracy concern, even though people like PBS were raising serious issues about Dominion just before the election. I heard you say today Dominion, the software, was actually designed to be hacked, and I'm looking at one of the agreements they had with the County of Santa Clara on this is a contract between them and Dominion. Item 226 allows staff to adjust tally based on review of scanned ballot images. Look, you're the lawyer. I'm no tech expert, but that sounds very, very funky to me.
And worse than that, it had a back door so it could be manipulated by anyone who could access it through that back door. And that was a deliberate feature. The affidavit of the young military officer we provided yesterday to the public explains how it was created for that very purpose. So Hugo Chavez would never lose another election. And he did not after that software was created. He won every single election, and then they exported it to Argentina and other countries in South America, and then they brought it here. And it's a foreign company, no matter how you look at it. So they've already violated the president's order against foreign interference in our elections. Our votes were actually eventually counted in Barcelona, Spain, or Frankfurt, Germany, on foreign servers. It's absolutely stunning. And what's really stunning is the effort that is being mounted against getting the truth out on this. But you have to realize that every tech company, every media company, every social media company, scads of globalist corporations have been doing business in countries with these dictators that have been installed through this rigged election system for decades. The corruption is actually worldwide. It is going to upset a countless number of elections across this country and around the world.
All right.
But we need to do that to get rid of the corruption.
It does make a lot of sense now how Joe Biden campaigned, i.e. not campaigning. Their team seemed to know something. If this is true about Dominion, and I suspect it is. By the way, okay, so we have these concerns. You've got your whistleblower. Who do you bring this to? Like, what happens next? What body do you have to implore to take action?
Well, we can add a fraud claim to any of the states in which litigation has already been filed as soon as we can get the rest of the material together that I'm still in the process of collecting, because, frankly, witnesses are coming forth every day that are fed up with the corruption in Dominion and in the states and the counties and the country. So we're intaking information at an amazing level of people who want to stop this and are absolutely fed up with it.
You mentioned
we can cut the evidence from the own mouths of the guy who founded the company. I haven't even had a chance to get that out to the public yet. But they admit, the founder of the company admits he can change 1 million votes, no problem at all.
The founder of Dominion admitted a long time ago, recently to you. Tell us more, please.
Publicly. I will tweet out the video later and I'll tag you in it.
Please do, at Greg Kelly USA, if you don't mind. That's pretty wild. Oh, by the way, what can you tell us about, you mentioned the whistleblower. There is a whistleblower. Remember, whistleblowers who are against President Trump are hailed as heroes and deified. What can you tell us about this individual?
The one who gave us the affidavit?
Yes.
He was a high-ranking military officer. He was very close to Hugo Chavez. And he is just absolutely disgusted with what he's seen and was participating in when he was with Mr. Chavez. He saw how it all worked. He was at meetings where it was fully briefed. And he wants this country to not fall prey to the same corruption and tactics that were used in Venezuela.
And I'm sorry, is he an American military officer or a Venezuelan military officer?
He was a Venezuelan military officer. He lives in this country now.
All right. And you mentioned the CIA today. I heard you during a radio appearance. You want the CIA director fired. It seemed a little bit off topic and off message, but what's the tie-in, if you don't mind?
The tie-in is that there's no way these programs could have been run around the world to affect elections without the CIA. We also have had people disclose to us the whole hammer program that was created for the CIA and scorecard, which is essentially the same thing. It seems like every country has used something like this to do what it wants to do. Supposedly ours was invented to influence foreign elections, but that too could have been turned on this election. It's all part of the same part and parcel of government interference in elections to make choices against the will of the people. And the will of the people in this country was that Donald Trump win in a landslide. If we can get to the bottom of it, and I am determined to do that, I think we'll find he had at least 80 million votes. The only reason the glitches happened in the system was because he had so far many more votes than they had calculated in advance. Their algorithms wouldn't perform the functions they'd originally performed or were set to perform. They couldn't make up the vote count. He had gotten so many hundreds of thousands more than they planned. So that's when they had to stop the counting and come up with a way to backfill the votes or destroy votes for Trump while they fabricated votes for Biden.
Sidney Powell, who is a former federal prosecutor, by the way, spent 10 years working for the federal government. Good luck. And by the way, very quickly, you have evidence. It's coming in fast. There is a reason for not making it public. Correct? I mean, you're going to have a hostile media picking it apart, possibly trying to destroy your case before you can even make it. Is that part of your thinking? Very briefly, if you don't mind.
Well, not really. It's a matter of collecting it in the right form and format to be admissible. And we have witnesses that are scared. We have witnesses that are afraid for their lives, afraid for their families. Back in Venezuela, there are all kinds of concerns. People have been threatened, and it's very serious. We're talking about trillions of dollars of worldwide wealth here that was all corrupt. And every force in the world except 80 million voters, we the people, and my little team seem to be against us.
Well, millions are praying for you and with you. And find her on Twitter. Least we can do. Sidney Powell 1, at Sidney Powell 1, the numeral 1. We appreciate it so much. Good luck, and please stay safe.
I'd like to introduce you to a cool little device. Ran down many of the contested races across the country.
There's reporting that in a third county in Georgia, in Walton County, they have found the same issue, a memory card that was not registered with votes. And guess what? These votes favor President Donald J. Trump. We were told yesterday when the first batch was discovered by the Georgia Secretary of State, this is very concerning because there are checks and balances in place. The local officials should resign. Well, these checks and balances appear to be fatally flawed, systematically irregular, to have happened now not in 1, 2, but 3 Georgia counties, amounting to the disenfranchisement of nearly 5,000 voters. What is going on here? This isn't about a party, Sean. This is about the integrity of our election system. And you have the same mistake in 3 counties, and the count has not ended yet. It won't end until midnight tomorrow.
All right. In Pennsylvania, Rudy Giuliani argued the case today. I've heard from more than a few people that he was absolutely brilliant in his arguments today. What's the status on that?
Yeah, one of the things he said today is he echoed Rahm Emanuel. He said, never let a crisis go to waste, and that is indeed what Democrats did here. He put that race into context when he said that, because there was a pandemic that was turned into an election epidemic. A natural disaster, they said, is why we had to do this mass mail-out voting. Live ammunition across the nation is what it was equivalent to, and it backfired. And I held up these papers, these affidavits, 234 pages of sworn affidavits under penalty of perjury.
But
These
by
are
the way,
from
Kayleigh,
one county.
What did CNN say about when you held them up on this program? Didn't they accuse you of holding up blank sheets?
That's right. They did about a 10-minute monologue saying these were blank. They're not blank. In fact, these pages of paper from one county were the reason that you had a county level Wayne County canvasser say we cannot certify this election because of these witnesses. They're real people. And one reporter tweeted out, this is the first time in my 20-year history I've ever seen something like this, a county commission refuse to certify. It's because for the first time, you have a president for fighting for the forgotten men and women in Detroit, in Philadelphia, and Democrat cities across the nation.
She was followed by former Speaker of the House Newt Gingrich, who opined on the state of the Georgia so-called recount.
If we don't fix this election system, and the governor and the Secretary of State have been absolutely useless in trying to get this thing fixed. We have the House, we have the Senate, the Georgia legislature could come in next Monday. They could fix a fair amount of this. They could also demand an accurate recount and simply note that the agreement the Secretary of State signed back in the spring changed Georgia law. He doesn't have the power to do that. The Constitution says those powers are reserved for the legislature, not to the Secretary of State or the court. So I just want you to know I am extremely concerned that this will be stolen no matter how good the campaign is. I think President Trump owes it to the American people to not concede until we've had an honest, accurate count in the states you're describing. In the case of Georgia, for example, one of the largest voting centers in Fulton County told the Republican poll watchers at 10 o'clock at night that everybody was going home. As soon as the Republicans left, they went back and counted ballots for 3 more hours with nobody there watching them. Now, it denies common sense not to believe that they were stealing. You have in Nevada an even worse case. If you listen to Adam Laxalt, the former Attorney General of Nevada, the legislature there, in a model that fits Tammany Hall, has legislated illegality as a legal system. So there are 600,000 votes in Nevada that nobody has seen. These votes were going through Barcelona, Spain, to Frankfurt, Germany to be counted. This is madness. This is utterly crazy. And I think we have to take this whole system apart and recognize that this election is a great moment for the American people to decide, do they want to have an honest election where they get to pick their leaders, or do they just want corrupt machines such as the one that Stacey Abrams is building to run the system, or the Nevada legislature and governor, the Democrats, who literally have built a corrupt system but made it legal because the legislature and the governor signed a law which I think will not hold up in federal court because it's so blatantly dishonest.
And when the votes are really...
CEO was finally grilled about censoring the New York Post Hunter Biden story. Take a listen to what Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey had to say about the company's anti-conservative bias. Take a listen.
We made a quick interpretation, using no other evidence, that the materials in the article were obtained through hacking, and according to our policy, we blocked them from being spread. Upon further consideration, we admitted this action was wrong and corrected it within 24 hours.
Well, first of all, Lindsay, that looks like a hostage video. Second of all,
his beard is quite a bit.
What?
I said his beard is quite a bit.
I literally think that a lawyer just handed it to him and say, read this and nothing else. And two, he just lied through his teeth on multiple fronts on that. So, I have a feeling that our next guest is going to have something to say about this. So let's bring in the host of America First on the Salem Radio Network and member of President Trump's National Security and Education Board, Dr. Sebastian Gorka. Dr. Gorka, I'm sure you don't have anything to say on this, but I know, so just, calm down. I thought the thing that was funny is that Dorsey in his testimony said that following their policy on hacked materials, but one, there's no evidence that the materials were ever hacked in the first place. So that's a lie. Number two is I don't remember this policy that he keeps referencing when the president's taxes were illegally leaked out and then reported on the New York Times. But maybe that's just me. Do you have anything to say about that?
I just want to know why Twitter kidnapped a hobo and put him on a Zoom call with the Senate. I'm still trying to work it out. A hobo with a nose ring. It's very peculiar. Look, you were in the administration when I was in the administration. We were a couple of days in, and they start leaking, unmasking the identity of the National Security Advisor when he surveilled on an illegal FISA warrant. I'm trying to recall, Sean, did Jack Dorsey censor the actual felony information of a leaked FISA identity from an unmasking. They didn't forget tax returns. This is classified, top secret information that Twitter is gleefully allowing everybody to send around the planet. But the best thing today, oh my, it wasn't the hobo on the Zoom call. It was Maisie Hirono. I used the clip on my show today. Maisie said, in an exhaustive investigation, I can now quote, Media Matters says there is no conservative bias on social media.
Oh,
I mean, the same Media Matters that watches your show and my show so they can attack us a few minutes later. They didn't find any bias.
Yeah. I mean, the bias is in the New York Times piece alone, that didn't get flagged, Seb. You know, the interesting part, Lindsey Graham made some really good points in the hearing today. I want to play one of his bites for our audience.
What I want to try to find out is if you're not a newspaper at Twitter or Facebook, then why do you have editorial control over the New York Post?
Of course, there he's referring to Section 230. This is such a great point that needs to keep being driven home, and for people to understand that ultimately Twitter here took an editorial process to flag that and say, oh, you know, people should be concerned about this when they didn't even have evidence, like we're saying. They are becoming the editor. It is clear, point in case.
It's not just that. If you post anything, your viewers right now should go online, go to Twitter, and post anything which has the words election fraud 2020 in it. If you have those words in it, the Twitter algorithm, before you post it or after you post it, will put this big warning. Oh, this is disputed. What's disputed? The fact that we're actually finding people are locked out of the ballot stations where polls are being counted. And then Twitter, before you send or repost one of the president's tweets about the election, says, send you a message. Are you sure you want to repost this?
Yes.
Or don't you want to read the article before you repost it? What the bloody hell are you? This isn't a kindergarten. You don't get to ask me what I want to repost on social media, because if you do, you're a publisher and then you lose all your immunities. And Jack, let me tell you something on good authority. Clarence Thomas is about to rip Section 230 like Nancy ripped the president's speech.
Wow. You know, the funny thing is, I thought about this. If Jack Dorsey had tweeted his own testimony today, he would have Twitter would have had to flag their own CEO with one of those little things that you just talked about, because it was so full of BS and lies that they would have had to say this tweet is in dispute and here are all the sources, because he literally lied through his teeth when it came to how he came to this decision and what he claims happened and the history of the policy. Seb, before we get going, though, I want to talk to you about the MAGA march, the Trump march this weekend. You were there. I saw pictures of you speaking to the crowd. You know, it was interesting, though. You gave a shout out to your security detail. Did you feel safe then? Because I also saw some of your posts talking about the fact that, you know, all of these Trump people, thousands of them in D.C., no rioting, no looting, no destruction. It was interesting, wasn't it?
It was so strange. We had hundreds of thousands of supporters of the president, of the 73 million that voted for him. When I got up on the podium at the Supreme Court, literally, as far as the horizon stretched, all I saw was stars and stripes and red hats. It was incredible. And not one shop was burnt to the ground. Not one shop was looted. In fact, they had taken down the boarded up windows before we arrived. How is that? Why is that? Because MAGA isn't violent. It's the left that has normalized violence. I had a security detail, Zach and your buddies, God bless you for looking after me and my team. But guess what happened afterwards? As soon as the sun came down, like jackals, like hyenas, they came out. And who did they attack? They didn't attack me, 6'3" with my security detail, because they're bloody cowards. They attacked a black woman with her child. They attacked senior citizens. They attacked people who couldn't defend themselves, including a 10-year-old girl with her 13-year-old brother. These people are cowards, and every American should be disgusted by what they did.
Yeah, it's disgraceful. We played the video of that mom being attacked yesterday. It's so sad. Seb, so great to have you. Thanks for being here, and look forward to having you again soon.
God bless you guys.
You can't commit a crime with your words, and you can't incite violence. But other than that, you can print any damn thing you want to. and we'll let our users judge. Give me your thoughts on that.
Those are generally the rules we have. I mean, our focus on these policies. Senator,
No, you don't, Mr. Dorsey. Excuse me for interrupting, but you're censoring right and left, trying to make both sides happy, and you're making neither side happy.
No, that's not the intention. The intention is to...
I know it's not the intention, but it's the result.
I can see why you might say that and why you might perceive that, and that's why we do think it's important that we add more transparency to how we moderate content, that we give more control to individuals to moderate their own content and focus on algorithms. But a lot of our policies are focused on making sure that people feel that they can express themselves in the first place and not driven away. Everything you mentioned about bullying, about harassment around illegal content or violence, incitement to violence, that is what our policies are, and that is...
I know, and excuse me for interrupting, but my time's limited, and I want to hear from Mr. Zuckerberg. But you're not just doing that. You started to censor content. Why not have both Mr. Biden and Mr. Trump able to say whatever they want to on your platform?
Newsmax TV is now America's fastest.
To acknowledge that the Moderna vaccine was done with funds from Operation Warp Speed, and the Pfizer one has funding when it comes to the distribution and manufacture. And I just think it's important that people working so hard, Moncef Slaoui and the others, get credit for this. And President Trump was the one who okayed it.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, the pace of medical innovation has been forever changed. I mean, 3 months. January 11th is when they got the sequence of this virus. By March 16th, 2 months later, shots were going into arms as part of these clinical trials. I couldn't believe it when I saw that pace. It typically takes, years to really get these vaccines approved. It'll be done within a year. So that is worth celebrating. And now we have some early data to be very optimistic about.
So all of the scientists, everyone behind this, all the way up to President Trump and Vice President Pence, congratulations on this great accomplishment. We're obviously waiting for more news and for the vaccine to be available. Dr. Sanjay Gupta.
I have never seen the types of voter irregularity we have seen in Clark County. The zeal to push reckless, unsolicited mail-in voting resulted in 50% of ballots coming through the mail and a 10-fold increase in mail ballots in Clark County. Fact, the voter lists were never appropriately scrubbed, including the press reports after FOIA requests of not scrubbing over 80,000 primary voters before the general election ballots were made.